Hiya, boys and girls. Alan Williamson is going to lead off. He's our lead-off hitter. And this is the book that I've been reading. His newer book. I can't see the title.
Franciscan Notes.
Franciscan Notes. But I have been reading The Pattern More Complicated, which is a quote from T.S. Eliot. The fuller quote is, "The world becomes stranger, the pattern more complicated of dead and living." And that's a great epigraph for Alan, for his mind, the size of his mind. He's both comprehensive in his subject matter and down to earth in his diction. Down to earth is not a good way to describe it. He also has sublimity in his language, but it's honest. It's clear and down with the subject. There was more that I wanted to say. What indeed has skipped my mind? Well, it's not. What's important is Alan and hearing him. So let's give him a warm welcome, Alan Williamson.
Thank you very much. So, I'm going to read one poem from, can you all hear me all right? I'll read one poem from Franciscan Notes, and then everything else will be...
You do want to use the microphone.
I'll be your stage hand.
Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
One poem from Franciscan Notes, and then all the rest will be new work. It's called A Sick Child. Sometimes I feel I'm a sick child forever, too tired to carry anything through, too bed-worn and fretful to fall asleep. The radio helps at certain hours. A tableau of Chicago winter, light snow flurries, monochromes everything outside my window. Home from class, my father talks to me from the doorway. He's awkward, but for once he doesn't expect of me anything I can't do. The shadow gathers with its particular loneliness, though elsewhere it makes light spark on. Women put on jewels, parties begin. But sometimes something falls away from me in those hours. My mind grows simple, wanting nothing, worried by nothing, imperturbable as time. And a day will come when I'll ask my mother for an extra meal between lunch and supper. She'll know I'm better then, and we'll supply it, a small pate sandwich with the crust cut off. So, well, Chicago is sort of a mixed bag of a place to grow up, but I'm still remain very attached to it. I seldom go back there. And here's a little more lyric poem called Chicago Song. Cool soot on the windowsills in winter, smell of the stockyards when the wind blew wrong, sinus infections when the doctor thought me too young to have sinuses at all. The grandeur of downtown, the black and gold skyscrapers, cyclopean stone, cottonwoods almost brushing apartment windows in summer, heat falling like a soft blanket on park lagoons, muskrats pushing off from nameless islands. Childhood, a thin raft floating just under the water, respite of sleepless hours that set me back there, wherever in the world I am. Well, of course not all memories of childhood are as lyrical as that, and I've actually just published a group of 4 poems dealing with psychological troubles in the Birmingham Poetry Review, along with 3 poems of Richard's, needless to say, on quite different subjects. So I'm going to read the first one, called The Burden, 1954. What do you say to the 10-year-old boy who fears his mind has done something before he knows it or can call it back, like casting a curse on someone? The stories have told him how lethal curses can be. It can come on him anywhere, say, standing waist deep in the shallow end of the pool. He doesn't connect it with the rage he sometimes feels. Rather, he fears it will damage people I'd rather have blessed. Those are the words he chooses with his mother in the long baths he still asks for sometimes, even at his age, to talk to her in private. What could she say that would be enough? She says what she might say to herself. Why don't you make a game of it? Try to imagine the worst curse that you can. But underneath, he can tell she is baffled, that her words don't reach as far as his anguish makes him lonely in a way he has never been lonely before. Perhaps one might say this: you're at the beginning of a long story. It will run beside all the other stories, finding someone who'll love you, making a place in the world, having a child, even when it doesn't complicate them. Struggling under its weight may make you think and grow in unforeseeable ways, and perhaps when you're very old, it will go away as mysteriously as it came. But you can't know that now, for now it's here, and so can't not be here. You have to bear it.
What?
You have to bear it.
You don't have hearing.
Can most of you hear me all right? No.
No.
There's some people who are saying no.
You should be closer to the mic.
You're a bit taller than I thought.
Okay, there.
Thank you. How is
That's
this?
better.
Excellent. Good.
Excellent.
Even over on the sides and in the back. Well, of course, there's another truth, as a lot of writers have told us about thinking about the past, and that is that there was a lot of beauty there that maybe one was unaware of when one was living through it, because one was so focused on more immediate problems. Recently, when I was in New Orleans, the birds there vividly brought back to me, birds like cardinals and mockingbirds, the time I spent early in my career at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. So this is a poem called "It Was Always There." It was always there in the little house, the screen porch we used for candlelit summer dinners, the friends who came to them, the possum that ran down the driveway, my first wife's beautiful scholarly face, as no one imagines it now. So why the dread I've spoken of? After the evening thunderstorms, I tried to quiet it, climbing the small rise behind our house to some gentle garden task, invoking Hopkins, calling him Brother Gerard. Perhaps my greatest fear was that I was living a conventional life. If so, I scuttled that quickly enough. But the birds knew something deeper. I can tell from the eagerness with which I greet them, an old man back in the South, always already there. A crimson eye of the universe opens, a cardinal deep in the heart of a tree. So, next elegy, next poem is an elegy for a dear friend who's also dear to Joyce and to Richie, Naomi Schwartz, who died 6 years ago this summer. And this poem, oddly, was recently published in Christianity and Literature, of all places. And I had hoped that Naomi's husband, Jack Marshall, could be here, but he said he was not feeling well enough. Naomi, no more sudden gifts of dish towels or sofa cushions out of perceived need, or the perfect malachite Buddha remounted off center and so unsaleable in your antique business. But no complaints, you who furnished my first single dad apartment with elegant things I could afford, and during my panic before the separation said to me, well, at least your life isn't boring. Dear one, jittery, irritating, unable to sit down and not be up and helping that last Christmas dinner. Despite the cigarettes, the nail-biting, the painkillers, you were almost my daughter's third parent in the hard years, when you always asked her to help with your estate sales. The only writer I know who ever stopped writing for fear that trying and failing at it would make you a less generous spirit. At our dinners, you insisted we hold hands while you said grace, always ending by remembering those less fortunate, as if anything could be much less fortunate than breast cancer spread to the spine. You went on teaching the remedial comp students you actually preferred until 2 months short of the end. I away and unknowing that terrible last week when your brain started to swell uncontrollably. Agony, then coma. Nothing left for me except to try to believe we loved each other enough not to need to say goodbye. You who took me to hear Thich Nhat Hanh when he said, the rose blooms, then falls to rot and excrement, and then grows again. How can you expect people to be always blooming? I'm going to finish with a longer poem called Our Century, and a bit of explanation here. By our century, I don't mean either the 20th or the 21st century. I mean the span of time that for someone my age is within memory or on the edge of memory. So my touchstones of public events probably wouldn't be the same as other people's, and especially people younger than me. Also, this poem was written before our latest catastrophe, though I think touches of it got into the revision of the poem. It starts with a long prose epigraph from Rilke's the notebooks of Malta Brega. The existence of the horrific in every particle of the air. It's invisible when you breathe it in, but inside you it precipitates out, hardens, forms needle-sharp geometric structures in the spaces between your organs. Because all the torment and horror undergone at places of execution, in torture chambers, in madhouses and operating rooms, under the arches of bridges in late autumn, it all has a tenacious staying power. So that's real good. Here's the poem. It was the too thin shower stream, the window badly insulated against the winter night of Munich, sealed in my soul the terrible photograph I'd seen that day. Shivering prisoners, briefly released from the icy swimming pool they'd have to re-enter so the doctors could measure how long it takes to die of hypothermia. What a century we've lived, barely conscious when the camps were liberated, and then the bomb. Huddled under school desks for the ridiculous drills, heard of those already digging and supplying underground shelters. Would they let the neighbors in? Saw Robert Frost's pages flutter away from his fingers at Kennedy's inaugural. Saw Kennedy shot in Dallas. Walked the never-to-be-seen from the surface black nadir of the Vietnam Memorial. And kept on hoping each election would set things right, then finding either the bad guys won or the good guys were too compromised from the start to accomplish half of what we'd hoped. And then the plague and its amnesia. And now we're old, only to find the whole earth threatened as we couldn't have imagined. Not bombs, invisible ash particles in the air, and the dread of summer. What part of our state will burn up? What city half destroyed by a storm surge? And what we've brought upon ourselves by all the consequences of our being too many and giving too much to too few. Now reap the whirlwind. Take down your Tacitus for the audacities of tyrants, the mean, misplaced resentments of the half-informed, the ever more omnipresent itch to kill, and behind it all, the enormous wish that nothing would have changed. And we, like others, take refuge in dailiness. Away from home, I want you to talk to me through the mysterious black rectangle that has to find the right place just outside the woods to draw its signals in. Talk to me melodiously of your day in Carmel, how though you don't usually like hamburgers, you ordered one for the fries and ate it out on the terrace in spite of the cold to watch the fog slowly enter the pines, and then went back to the house my grandparents built in 1930, solid redwood, knotty pine, Art Nouveau platters, and the fireplace built of warped and purpled bricks salvaged from the San Francisco earthquake and fire. Thank you very much.
Our next reader is Jeanne Foster, and that brings to mind something that I wanted to say about Alan, that he is a translator. Jeanne Foster and Alan translated the Living Theater, the selected poems of Bianca Tarazzi, So Alan is a translator and he's a critic. He's a scholarly writer as well. Now, the book that I've been reading for this session is this one. This is your most recent book. Your Form Became My Own. This is a mysterious book. It begins with a you that is intimate, probably a lover, perhaps a lover, and then the you dissolves. It keeps changing throughout the book with a hint towards the end of a mother. And all of us, if we're lucky, come into the world with a big I-you relation. We're looking up we're looking up at Mom. And Mom is our introduction to the whole world, to divinity as well. Jeanne, this may or may not be relevant, but she's a Unitarian Universalist preacher. And she says in one of the poems, a God that I don't believe in. But this is an intro to divinity and mystery. Let's give her a warm welcome, Jeanne Foster.
Thank you for that introduction. It's wonderful. I appreciate it so much. Well, although my latest published book is Your Form Became My Own, I want to announce, and I'm happy to announce, that I have had a book just come out from Italy. And it's a selected poems from all of my great history of poetry, translated into Italian. And it's by the Molosini Editore in Venice. So I have two copies because it costs so much to send a little copy of a book from Italy to here and vice versa. But the book is supposed to come out on Amazon at the beginning of July, if anybody wants it. So it's called Ascoltando una concilia. Alan, help me. Ascoltando una concilia. Listening to a shell. In translation. So that particular poem that is translated into Italian is the first poem in an earlier book of mine called Goodbye, Silver Sister. And I thought I would read it, listening to a shell. I put my glasses on here. By the way, this poem is set in Key West, Florida. And that's where my grandmother lived for 50 years or so. She's not in this particular poem, but my Uncle Max is, and others of us standing at the edge of the ocean in Key West, listening to a shell. The tongue is tough. It doesn't want to let go. In the remnant light, my sandy-haired uncle grasps it with pliers. He's gilded bronze in his bathing suit. The tongue is pink as salmon, the color of the last sky. The harder he pulls, the deeper it draws back into labyrinthine whirls. He sets a screwdriver like a chisel against the center point, the temple, where the tapering spiral peaks, perfection that speaks of something larger. And now he taps the handle with a hammer, a single well-placed blow, and the tip of shell flies off, lost in the sand. It's easy now. The tongue surrenders, shuddering, its full length arrested from its house. Gathered round, we witness Uncle Max flay the naked animal, using true sand for sandpaper. Then he rinses it in the ocean's lapping edge. The skin is tough, the raw tongue is crispy like cucumber, he says, slicing each one of us a chunk, palpably shrinking in the hand. There in the twilight, I eat my one bite of living conch. Only a shadow now, and a circular glow of cigarette. My mother, who knows secret things, cups the empty conch shell to my ear. Listen, her breath swirls against my cheek. Can you hear it? So I'm sort of moving through some published work and some that has not been published yet. And the next thing I'm going to read is from this book, Your Form Became My Own. And it's called Beyond the Constellations. And it has the U in it. And it has what it has. In the ambulance, still in her black flats, she kicks space, trying to make room out there among the constellations, kicking off the sheet with her red pants leg, setting free, even as I call her, Mama, Mama, from the front seat, turning to reach, and the driver says, you can't go back there, she doesn't hear you. What I thought at first were raindrops on the smallest branches of a slender tree, so pale it glows into the room even on the darkest night. I now can see our buds, round as drops, bulging with spring rains. A tiny bird with a black cap, very like my mother's favorite chickadee, but with a lemon yellow breast, lights there for a sparkling instant, the showering moisture to the earth as it breaks an insect on the branch or sharpens its beak against the silver bark, then flies away. Surprising, isn't it? How your tears are quieted in a moment's attention to a small, God-given other. You forget yourself. Like leaves long at the bottom of the slow creek, stirred up, rising to the surface. A memory, or is it a dream? Did I kick the sheets all night while lightning opened the meadow and the olive trees? One blood, one body. Here you are she, and you are not she, painfully fearing you are. Let's see. I would like to read the title poem of a manuscript that I've been sending out. It's called From a Tuscan Farmhouse Window. And it has characters from Tuscany at a farmhouse that I've stayed in. Alan and I've stayed in a number of times. It's more about the animals, though, than the people. More about the dogs, and in fact, rather than the owners of the dogs. I watched as Marco lifted Ellie up into his truck. She could no longer make the jump. Achille could. The crush and crunch as earth gave way beneath the wheels, the bang and bounce as age-old stone would not. The truck's complaints as down they rumbled, man and dogs. The road a rut that sliced the vineyard off from untamed grass. A curve left, and then the groaning stopped as the wire fence gate. Marco left the cab at the wire fence gate. Marco left the cab door agape. His eagerness renewed to walk among the tomato rows, the beans on poles, the broad zucchini leaves, the lettuces, now with his new replacement knees. Meanwhile, the two dogs disembarked from the rear. Ellie could still jump down, though not up, her hind legs stiff with senior shepherd disease. As Marco moved to the shed to feed the chickens and the guinea fowl, the dogs meandered among gnarled trunks and unkept fruit trees, grasses gradually winding their way back up the hill, sauntering, as Thoreau would say. Ellie still in the lead, Achille following, his head to the ground for sense of interest. By the time Marco had done his chores, closed the garden gate, and turned the truck around to start back up the rut, the dogs were dozing in the shade at the top. Achille, middle-aged, and Ellie with her old knees. Time is told in many ways. And let's see. I'm going to read another short poem from this volume, this book I'm trying to get published. It's a villanelle, and let me see where it is here. I wrote a group of villanelles while I was there, and so I'm going to read a couple of them. But this one for now, it's called Song for the Lampi, and lampi are lightning flashes in Italian. Lightning in the early morning flashing above the hills and lighting up my room. For you, I am changing my direction. My head where before my feet were lying. Now I am lying face to face with you, lightning in the early morning flashing. No warning. Into the universe of things, I am floating still in my very bed and room. Hold me. I am changing my direction. Raining is crying. The universe is holding. Now it's pouring here in the very room. Lampy in the early morning flashing. In the final room, my father's eyes not seeing, but still alive. Then the spirit slipped through. I held him. He was changing his direction. Quivering awake, I am beginning, ending, all alone in my floating room, lightning in the early morning flashing. Earth and heaven are changing their direction. I'm going to go back to Key West, where my grandmother lived, as I said, for 50 years. Her name was Jeanne Elliott Taylor, 1893 to 1992. She's the one who started the Key West Art and Historical Society, which is still very active in Key West. And she also lived in one of the Martello Towers for a period of time, and I'd love to visit her because I'd love to be in that fort. It was really great. So this is a little bit longer poem, hopefully not too long. Get it apart here. Okay. Thunderstorm on Key West. The noise gives birth to the silence from which the noise is born. It must be over. Just now the cicadas start up their chainsaw. The lavish hibiscus lifts from the rain-soaked patio floor and unfolds its golden face. The lizard stiffens its tail in a curl, throws back its head, and thrusts out the lewd flag of its throat, as if in denouncement. Forgive us, for we know not. Last night I lay awake trembling in the grand four-poster which holds the years of her small shape in a fetal curl. Outside, the storm threw bolts, shot ray guns, the tin roofs of the island a perpetual drum roll, and then the old rustle that ghosts make when they are about the tropical island's shuttered windows and doors. Yesterday, in a small plane, we flew around a top-heavy cloud, brewing the impending island storm. Looks mean, the pilot radioed, adjusting our flight pattern. We flew above the expanse of turquoise green, along the line of keys in reverse, away from her island. Sad company, pilot, me, my mother, father, attendant, and my grandmother, cursing and kicking the back of her son's seat with her size 3 feet. It must be over. Here at the southernmost point, the end of the line, the cicadas have started up their chainsaw, and through the unlikely workings of the human mind, their raucous chorus transports me north across the continent to the land of blighted elms, upthrust limbs leafless, each tree bleeding the color mark of its scheduled slaughter. Nothing is lost. Yesterday we swooped down and lifted her up. For 50 years she was an island legend, island loved. We flew her on metallic wings and dropped her into a landlocked red brick and mortar, flat-faced box they call a home. No more kicking. Can't get this to come apart. And it is all over. The sun breaks out, water beads on the galleries of the old Bahama house. The delicate periwinkles unglue from the earth. Island routines pick up where they were left off. It is said, the moment she crossed the threshold, my grandmother slipped away into a girl on her first day of boarding school. And just one more short poem. It's another villanelle, and it's a song to my father on his birthday. He'd be 107 now. Today the dolphins are still laughing. They draw an arc and dive back down into my mother's sea-deep house. In a wreath, my father is floating sea miles off the Florida Sound. He can hear the dolphins laughing. He is resting in a floating wreath that sinks, glinting down into my sea-deep mother's house. Oh, how simple is her asking, simple as it is profound. Come join her, and the dolphins laughing. On my kitchen windowsill, still shining, 3 small shells collected in the dawn, gifts from the Gulf, my mother's house. The 3rd is mine, and I am singing. Today he is 101. Oh, I can hear the dolphins laughing, and my father is resting in my mother's house. Thank you.
Okay. Our third reader is Richard Tillinghast. And his book, his 15th poetry book, Night Train to Memphis. And here's the train coming at you. This is really, I think, a bravura book. It takes us to so many different places. Like, one thing that struck me in an early part of the book, we're in a prison. We're going around a prison, perhaps because Richard was teaching there. But you got the muscle guys clanking, you got the gang guys. You can really feel the prison. He goes, of course, to Tennessee because he was born in Tennessee and grew up there. And there's the bluesy aspect of pawn shop guitars, and I wish I could actually read sections, but you go then from Tennessee, ending with Beethoven, with a poem that says that there's a key for each decade of our life. And this is his ninth. I think A minor is the key for his ninth. And he ends, we're not done yet. Let's give him a warm welcome, Richard Tillinghast.
Thank you very much, Richard. So we got to raise this thing here. Where are you, Harold? Oh, here we go. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it's so great to be introduced by one of my favorite people in the universe, Richard Silberg. We've been friends for a very long time. And I want to thank Richard and Joyce Jenkins for sponsoring this reading. And I don't know where you are, Harold, but I love your space here. This is just the coolest. Thank you, man. I just feel so much at home.
That's great. Back in time.
He was saying, this is like, what were you saying? It's like what your living room would be like if you were a
If I was
millionaire.
a millionaire and had a big living room, this is what it would look like.
This would be it, yeah. So here we are. And I would like to start off by reading a poem from a recent book called Blue If Only I Could Tell You. Just so much struck by the refugee phenomenon in the world. There are so many refugees from so many different places now. And it's kind of a constant of history. If you think about the Second World War and the displaced persons, the refugees in this poem are not any specific group of refugees, but sort of, well, I guess what I tried to do was to synthesize the whole experience of being a refugee, having to leave someplace. The poem is called Exodus. The refugees were nervous, glancing back toward the hills, fearing the sniper with his telescopic sight and sinister nickname. What did these homeless ones care about the history of human displacement? They were changing money and trying to sell their watches. Trucks packed with soldiers, boys really, sped along the dock, firing their rifles into the air. The gypsies were trying to hide. Then came a truck with a loudspeaker, moving slow among incinerated cars on the boulevard named after the national hero, giving orders in 3 languages. How many souls, how many dreams of escape, how many nightmare nights could the little ship hold? They took on board as many as could pay. Small groups gathered on deck, talking quietly. It was an end and a beginning. Someone had brought a bottle and they needed it. What a sigh ascended when the ship steamed out onto the uncaring ocean. This is, well, if you picture the unhoused people in this poem as being down around the foot of University Avenue in Berkeley, that's exactly where this image came from, so you'd be right on there. This one is called The Feast of the Hungry, and it does kind of a strange thing because it starts off in the Middle Ages and it ends up down at the foot of University Avenue. The Feast of the Hungry. Every window in the big house blazed, brilliant with beeswax candles, Murano chandeliers, torches and sconces. Wayfarers across the snow, their feet near to freezing, peered through frozen branches into this festival of lights. Hunger, misery, the cold in their extremities. They fancied they could smell, these wanderers, the pig roasting on a spit over the fire. Hear the fiddle and psaltery, the rustle of taffeta, the clacking of dancers' heels on the parquet floor. The bloodhounds that might have been whistled up to harry them off the grounds snored in the entrance hall. Having gnawed on bones, the wayfarers would have fallen on like dogs themselves. Why am I telling you this? It's certain that those at the top of fortune's wheel will never tire of feasting and making merry. As for the poor, they are, as Jesus said, always with us. Our headlights illuminate them along the garbage-strewn freeway in their tents and lean-tos. Well, I used to live in the Bay Area in Berkeley and in Marin for a number of years, and the poem that Richard alluded to, I experienced that kind of typical 60s, 70s experience of it was really cool to drop out. You know, the Beatles were saying everybody drop out, and dropping out was pretty easy, and it was a lot of fun. And I was playing in a bar band. I had a little job doing unskilled carpentry, and then started having children. And then, you know, you've dropped out, now you've got to claw your way back in. So my first gainful employment was teaching night school at San Quentin, and I did it for 3 years. And here's a poem that came out of that experience. It's called A Spy in the House of Pain. Once I show my pass and they let me in, I order a bowl of chili at the cafe inside the outer gate and outside the inner. For the cooks, it must feel good to get out of the cell for an hour or two, light fire under meat, shake the earthiness of cumin and oregano into red beans that have soaked all night while the prison slept. Maybe I need the chili for the sound I'm about to hear, metal clanging on metal, deadbolt slamming into place after I empty my pockets and hand over my briefcase to be searched and make my way inside the house of pain. The racket of imprisonment, domino players slapping tiles, smack of a handball hard against the wall, iron clanging as the muscle men work out. Duck tailors who walked off the set of Blackboard Jungle reappear years later in the yard, still slicking back their hair with Brill cream. The Nation of Islam meanders, disputing theology. Jailhouse queens parade. And is that crazy John over there in his mirrored aviators and explosion of hair and Nazi tattoos? The homeboys and the Aryans, the black guerrilla family, the Latin kings, the whole locked up nation at war with themselves, and a guard watching from the tower, finger on the trigger. Now I would like to read the title poem from Night Train to Memphis. Just want to say what a pleasure it is to read with Jeanne and Alan. I know several of the poems that they read, and it was great to hear them. Alan and I, in particular, go back a long way. We were in graduate school together. We had the same poetry teachers. And it's fascinating to me to notice that we started out with the same poetry teachers. And I like to think it's to the credit of both of us that we write so differently. We managed to outgrow our influences. One could say that maybe. And I think I've actually been in that little house that you're talking about in Tuscany, or at least one very much like it. Night train to Memphis. Slicks of rain streak the moving window of my train. My trunk's in the baggage car, and I'm counting the passing stations like beads on a rosary. Nightfall along the Blue Ridge, the locomotive sending a voice. Down valleys so lonely, only the deer lift up their heads to listen. A lady in a black dress sits by herself next to the window, reading the letters of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Somebody's got a guitar and a bottle of bourbon. Here come the old songs. Then it's dawn, wisteria pale on a hillside with cedars, and I hear a bell. It must be Sunday. Cars cluster in the rain under the modest spire of the Cumberland Presbyterians, quarried stone of the Methodists, white columns of the Chamber of Commerce Baptist. And up on surly hillsides, the meeting houses of the snake handlers, their music cranked up too loud for the Sabbath. If Memphis were Jerusalem, I'd be a Jew. But I'm not. I'm an equivocal Anglican, snake handler and shouter, backslid Baptist, old believer, and apostate. If I could catechize like St. Paul and name like him 3 things abiding, they might be faithlessness, unkindness, and the hope that love holds out. Every trip home is a pilgrimage into the self. What other way is there to find out who you are? I need to follow my footsteps backwards, bewildered and astonished into my childhood, so I can enter the sanctuary of becoming. You sinners and heretics, backsliders, shouters, promise breakers, lovers with hearts as cold as the rain on Main Street, pray for me as I step down off the train.
Yeah.
I'd like to read 2 more, and the first one would be something new that hasn't been published yet. It's called The Way Across. I don't know, my publisher is White Pine Press, and I'm going to mention someone who translates classical Chinese and Japanese poetry. His name is Red Pine. Have you ever read any of his translations or anything by him? His American name is Bill Porter, but he, like a lot of the poets he translates, he has adopted this name, Red Pine. And this poem is, I'd say, the source of this poem are certainly influenced by some of the things I've read by this guy, Bill Porter, Red Pine. The poem's called The Way Across. Hard to tell if this is a path at all. The only signpost I see, I can't read. Below me lie fields of barley. Up trail the rock face rears like a dragon's back. A green glowing moss on the flagstones yields underfoot as I climb. Peaks raise their heads through mist, and the trail switchbacks beyond the eye's imagination. One after another, how is it possible? My former lives are wandering off, some ascending the mountain to take up a higher residence. Or they slip away unnoticed. Lessons I learned or should have learned, pleasures that seemed at the time no more than my due, stories that ended in tears or fury, become chapters in a different book. Friends for life, those who were there for the good times, those who regret having ever met me, friends who tried to improve me, compadres who knew me for who I was. For them, I become a memory. I cross a bridge lashed with vines swaying over the roar of a river. The water urgent below, snow and fear in its molecules. These watchers, these guardians, are they real? They sit smoking their pipes, playing chess in the pavilion they have built near the top to view the moon. Part of me expects to find something at the end, an inn, a hermitage, a simple supper, and a place to sleep. The air vibrates with the low frequency of a bell. And since the solstice is coming up, I thought I would conclude. I just want to say, Harold, I love your space, man. It's just, I feel so at home. And I even smell a little Pacalolo in the air, which is always good, you know. I don't know where it's coming from, but God bless you, whoever you are. Solstice. Pacalolo is the Hawaiian word for ganja. Solstice. A breath indrawn opens the afternoon. A hawk, buoyed by thermals, peers down over these ridges and valleys. How still the day is, this late in June. With a word to no one, a leaf exhales. There goes the I'm all alone call of a dove. The chickens, their day's work done, speak their small syllables, then pomp and circumstance toward their perches. Not a dog barks, not an engine turns over, not a nail is hammered, not a match is struck, or a string plucked, not a shirt is hung on the line. Just you and me up here at the end of the road, at the end of the day. A big moth flutters from under the overhang. Everyone has gone away. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed being here, and again, thank you so much, Joyce, for
Of course.
sponsoring us.